Today we'll have to look at the different methods which applies to the list, and also we'll have 2 or 3 practice examples towards the end of this. It should be over with about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then we shall proceed to the next topic, that is a very brief discussion on tuples, and then let's go on to set, which is a very important thing when we talk about the IoT. Going further with a few more examples, as we seen in the string, the slicing operation can also be done with the list with the same mechanism as we saw in the string. So I just cover this through through one example, and we should be clear with this. This is a repetition of what we have done in the case of string. For our example purpose, I'm defining one list called primes, and let's see what happens when we use this kind of slicing operations on the string. And remember that this will always return a new string. Okay, sorry, this will always return a new list based upon the slicing numbers that you have mentioned in the given statement. So with this as our original primes, which has 10 elements, the prime numbers from 2 to 29. First, if I use :4, just try to recall that :4 is the slicing operation, that is elements. It represents the elements starting from the beginning up to the index 4. But remember, it is not including index 4. So index 4 here is, this is having the first entry 2 is having the index 0. This is 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. The element at index 4 is 11. But this will slice the list starting from the beginning up to index 3. Remember, index 4 is not included. So 2, 3, 5, 7 will be the output. Let me just execute this. We can see the output alongside together. So you can see that it has outputted 2, 3, 5, 7, the first 4 elements. The next one, starting from element 2, index 2 to 7. That means the elements at index 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember this, the last one, 7, is not included. So at index 2, we have 5. 7, this is index 3, 4, 5, 6. This will be included in the output. 5, 7, 11, 13, 17 will be displayed in the output. Third example, this just gives you the different ways in which we can represent the slicing operation. The third one is ::2. Now, whenever we have this ::2, this should be interpreted as, in the first place, we are writing the starting index. If you don't write anything, it means that it is the beginning. In the middle, you are writing the end index. If you don't write anything, it means the last one. And the last element here is the increment. If the increment is, whatever is the number here, if it is positive, you are traversing from left to right. The index is from 0 to length -1. If it is negative, if this fellow is negative, then you are traversing in the reverse direction, and the numbers that you are writing here must conform with this direction. Okay. So in this case, what it will do is it will display every alternate numbers, because we have taken the interval 2, starting with index 0, ending with the last element. Every alternate elements in the list will be produced in the output. So in the output, I should get 2, 5, 11, 17, and 23. And that's what I'm getting here. Similarly, the next one, last but one, here colon -1. Now look at the number here, it is -1. So that means the increment is 1, but it has got a negative sign. That means we are starting from the end and going in the reverse direction. Now automatically the starting and end value here will get adjusted based upon the sign here, because we have not written anything in these two locations. So the starting is going to be -1, the end is going to be corresponding to that. In this case I have 10 elements here. So this fellow will have the index -10. So it is as good as writing -1, -10, -1. So this will simply, in fact, I think we have paid little more attention in the case of strings also. This will always return the list in the reverse direction. Okay, it is effectively reverse the string. Reverse the list. As you can see here, the output is the reversed version of the original string primes. Okay. And the last one, -1 to -5 -1. Now here also we have the index as -1. So that means you have to go in the reverse direction. Starting is -1, means the last element. Ending is -5. So it is -1, -2, -3, -4. Once again, -5 is not included in the output. So the output is going to be -1 to -5. So -1, -2, -3, -4 till here. So 29 to 17. But remember, going in the reverse direction, because this increment is given in the direction of -1. That is in the reverse direction. So you can see the output is 29, 23, 19, 17. Starting from 29, going in the reverse direction, there are 4 elements. Okay. The number of elements that go to the output is always equal to this minus this. Okay, last minus first. That will be the number of elements that go into the output. In case if it comes out to be negative, you can just do that calculation. When in case if this direction and these numbers are not conforming to each other, then you will get a null list in the output. Now I have included one more statement here at the end, print primes 11. Now the valid index for this primes is 0 to 9, because there are 10 elements. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The index of this is 9. So if you give a index value which is not present here, then you will get an error called index error, and that's what we are getting here. So we get an index here, list index out of range. Okay, and this is called the index error. If the index that you have mentioned is not valid, or if such an element is not present in the list, it will result into an index error. So naturally you should be cautious on giving these numbers. Should not end up with giving some number which do not exist in the given list. Okay, so this is a small note on this different mechanism on which we can do the slicing operation on the list. We have seen the similar operation with string, so you can just take some random example and do this practice. Okay, now suppose you want to do a deletion operation on the list. You want to delete few continuous elements. How can this be done? I am illustrating this with an example. Suppose I have a list something like this. I have just included the characters of the word problem, and I want to delete the elements in the list starting from 2 up to 5. Remember, recall the slicing operation. The elements at location index position 2, 3, and 4. Remember, 5 is not included. Elements in the index position 2, 3, and 4 have to be deleted. Okay. Now this can be easily accomplished by using an equal to operator. On the left side, I just mention the slicing operation. From element from 2 to 5 of my list has to be deleted or has to be removed. So on the right side, I equate it with the null list. Okay, elements in index position 2, 3, and 4 are deleted by executing this. So let's just see the operation. So you can see that the elements in the location 2, 3, and 4. The elements in the location 2, 3, and 4 are these three: O, B, and L. Okay, O, B, and L are not present in the output. Now remember, nothing has happened to, I mean, the original mylist itself is modified here because you are saying that mylist 2 to 5 has to be deleted. That's what you are telling by writing this expression. So those three elements are removed. And once you remove these three elements, what is left is PR, then EM. So that is outputted by this mylist. Well, I can use print statement also in ahead of this. Both will do the same job as I'm using a interactive Python execution. Even just by writing the variable name will give me the same result. Okay. Even if you don't write this print, it is okay for 99% of the case. Okay. Now going further, I think we used this earlier about the list comprehension, how we can do the list comprehension. Okay, this is just an example, and just maybe it's a repetition. So I'm just defining one list containing the even numbers from 2 to 8. What I want in the output is to create another list with the elements which are square of the elements of this list. So the output should be a list containing the square of this. Then next element should be square of this. Next element should be square of 6. Next element should be square of 8. Okay. So how this can be carried out? So I create a new variable LSQ, list of squares, equal to k into k, which gives me k is just a dummy variable, or it is a local variable used in to manipulate the numbers within this list. So what k will assume here? It will assume the different different elements in the list one by one as the loop goes on. So in the first traversal through the loop, you will get k equal to 2, and k into k, that is 2 into 2, will go to the list. In the next pass, the value of k will be 4. 4 into 4 will go to the, it will be appended to the list. Next pass, 6. 6 into 6 will be appended, 36 will be appended to the list. And further, in the last iteration of for loop, the k value will be 8, and 8 into 8, 64 will be appended to the list. So at the end, this for loop would have been executed 4 times because the length of the string is 4. And each time, the different values in the list is squared or is multiplied with itself and gets appended to the list. So this is how you can do the list comprehension. This is very specific to Python, and if you print this new variable LSQ, you can see that it has done the job: 4, 16, 36, and 64. Okay. In fact, this is a very simple way of getting the job done. In fact, I can also use some if statement towards the end to selectively choose some elements from this, and selectively I can disallow some elements from getting computed. Now we will see one such example in the later point of time. Okay. Going further, I have just made a list of methods. Try to recall, we had some methods that works on the string. Similarly, we have some methods which works on the list. And also recall that list is a mutable object. That means it can be modified in place. Whereas string is immutable object. Every time you do some operation on the string, it will return a new list. Whereas in the case of list, it will try to modify the list itself. Okay, we will see those examples shortly. So this is just some of the functions or some of the methods, we call it as a method, which work on the list: append, extend, insert, remove, pop, clear, index, count, sort, reverse, copy. These are some of the methods, I mean the most commonly used methods that we perform on a list. Okay, just to understand this, Okay, I'll skip this because this doesn't. This is just an example of creating a list where I've created a list called a month, and then okay, I'm trying to. I have a month list created in the form of name of month, and I've started with only three names here: January, February, and March. Now, if I want to append, if I want to add one more month to this, I can use the method called append. Remember, here I'm using the name of the variable month, then a dot, then append. Append is a method. So what it will do, it will add the argument given to the end of the list. So you can see that this print statement has resulted in the middle line here. So here April is added to the list. Now further, I am adding one more month, May, again calling the same method, month dot append. It has appended the month May, the string May to the list, and you can see that the same month, that is the month variable month, is modified, or it is added with one more string called whatever argument that you have supplied here. Okay, so the format is very simple: month dot append, then the value that you want to append as the argument to this method. That's all you need to do. Now, what is the difference between the plus operator and the list dot append? That is the append method. So I have one or two small illustration here that will make the concept clear. So let's first see what happens when you use L1 plus L2. So if I define one list L1 like this, 2, 5, 6, 7, and another list L2 as 79 with 797, and L3 is initialized with, I mean, L3 is reassigned, I mean, rather L3 is assigned with L1 plus L2. So L1 plus L2 will always create a new list. Okay, if I write L1 plus L2, it will always create a new list without modifying L1 and L2. L1 and L2 are not modified. It will create a new list by adding the contents of L2 and L1. Both of them are put into the same list and thereby producing L3. So you can see that in L3, I can see L1, this is the part of L1, this part is L1, and this part is L2. So I have a unified list where both the lists are merged together. All the elements of L1 and all the elements of L2 are going into a single list L3. So here basically L3 is a new list. Okay, L1 and L2 are not modified, they are intact. Now, if I want L1 to be modified, I can rewrite it like this: L1 equal to L1 plus L2. So here we are forcefully overwriting L1 by the old value of L1 that is containing these 4 elements, and then this L2 is added to it. I mean, elements of L2 is added to L1, and the result is overwriting L1. So here we are forcefully overwriting L1. Okay, but append method works in a slightly different way. Okay. Append method will be adding the contents of L2. In fact, append method can add only one value to another value. This is another important difference. Append method, sorry, this is, okay, though I have written append, here what I mean is I want L1 to be modified with the contents of original old L1 and L2. So both, as you can see here, it has done the job of merging both the list, as in the previous case where we have done L3 equal to L1 plus L2. But remember, here L3 is a new variable. Here L1 itself is overwritten with both the elements of both the list. Now there is another method called extend. Okay. Now usually append method we will be using to append a list with one element which is in place, as we have seen in the very first example here. Here we are giving only one element. This one element will be appended to the original variable, that is original list. But now what if you want to append more than one? So if you want to append more than one, the method to be used is extend. Okay, use the method extend. Now, so I'll take the same example. L1 is this, L2 is this one, that is having 8, 9, 10. And if I use L1 dot extend L2, remember here I have not used L1 equal to something as in the previous case here. I have not written L1 equal to something. Here I am simply saying apply this method onto L1. L1 dot extend, and in the as an argument I have given L2. So this do the extend does the job of extending L1 with the elements of L2 in place. Means L1 is modified. So this is as this is equivalent to writing L1 equal to L1 plus L2. Okay, this is equivalent to writing L1 plus L2. So what happens here is elements of L2, I mean L1 is extended with the elements of L2, and it happens in place. Okay. So if I print L1, you can see that L1 has been modified. And okay, going further, if you want to find the number, the length of the element, length of the list, or we have seen this earlier. If you want to find the length of the list, you can always use len, which is a built-in function of Python. It is available to you anytime without invoking any module or anything, without importing any module. You can use this function len L1. So length can be, this len can be used with any of the sequence type of data. You can be used with the string also, which will return you the number of characters in the string. So here with the list, it will return the number of elements in the list. So in our case, L1 has a length of 7 because this is our new L1. We have modified L1 to this value now, which has a length of 7. Okay, and going further, how do you do the reversing of the string? Remember, we can use the reversing of the string using that slicing operation. That is, in the slicing operation will be involving with the colon -1. But recall that it will always return a new string. It doesn't do the reversal in place. Okay, it doesn't do the reversal in place. Now, in case if you want to do the reversal in place without producing a new list, the method reverse can be used. Okay, so this is called in place reversal. This does not produce any new list. In fact, if I have to write this to be equivalent to the earlier method, this is equivalent to writing L1 equal to L1 colon -1. You are overwriting L1 with the reversed list. Okay, this is equivalent to that. So L1 dot reverse, this will reverse the elements in place. So let's just try to, I think it's already executed. Okay, so you can see that original L1 was 2567. This is the original L1, and the reversed L1 is 7652. As you can see here, it is 7652. So this will do the job of reversing the given list. Okay, remember that I think I have there is one more version of this reverse. I think I'll come back to that in one or two cells later. There is another important function which is going with, or important method which goes with the list, is the sorting. How do you sort this list? Now remember, sorting operation is possible when the elements are of the homogeneous type. Now, as we are taking example with the integers as the members of the list, sorting is possible. So how you can do the sorting? So you can see here that L1 is initialized with this. Then I'm printing L1 dot sort in place sorting and print L1. Let's see what. Let me re-execute this. Okay. Now, unfortunately, this list is already sorted. Just to make this something different, let me change this sequence, which is not in the sorted order. Okay. So initially L1 is defined to be like this. So first I should get the original L1, which is, okay. Then I'll execute this now. So this is my original L1, and after sorting, this is what I get. Now, one thing to notice here is no new list is produced. L1 is sorted in place. That means originally I had some elements in this sequence. Now the elements are rearranged so that it is in the sorting order, sorted order. Okay, the elements are rearranged so that it is in the sorted order. So no new element, no new list is produced here. The same list is modified by rearranging the elements such that the final list is in the sorted order. I think you do similar kind of problem probably in your C language or sorting the array. Okay, the same array is modified so that at the end you will have it in a sorted order. Okay, this is what you get at the end of this operation. Okay. Now there is one more function called sorted. Remember, so the name we are using for the list method is sort. Okay, sort is the name of the method which is applicable to a list. Now there is one more built-in function of the Python called sorted. Okay, this is a built-in function of the Python, and we can use this also if you want to sort the numbers. I mean, sort the list or sort a sequence, and this doesn't sort the list in place, but instead it produces a new list. Okay, it will produce a new sorted list, and it will not produce. I mean, it will not sort it in place. There is a difference between sort and sorted. Sort will do the sorting in place, whereas sorted will produce a new list. It will generate a new list. So just as an example, I have defined one list L6, which is actually in the descending order. So if I execute this print sorted, you can see that it has produced a new list which is sorted, but the original list L6, okay, original list L6 is not modified. What I have highlighted here is the original list, and this list is not modified. It is the same as the one we started with, but the output from sorted L6, it is a list which is sorted in the ascending order. Now, quite often, okay, you can always get a help on this sort function using this help L1.sort. You always get a small help line on this command. There is one argument that you can pass to the sort function. We have not passed it here. Okay, and by default, the value of that argument is false. Reverse equal to false. So in all these examples that we took earlier, we have not passed this function parameter reverse equal to false. Now, what is the implication of this? Now, in case if you say reverse equal to true, if you pass on the function with reverse equal to true, then the sorting happens in the descending order. By default, if reverse is false, the sorting happens in the ascending order. If you want to make the sorting in the descending order, then you should give this argument reverse equal to true. Okay, so I have an example here. Print L1. L1 is I think we had defined it earlier. This is our L1. Okay, let me just make it specific here. Control V. Okay, So this is our L1. So if we want to sort this in the reverse order, that is in the descending order, then I can give this parameter reverse equal to true. Okay. So you can see that these are original L1 and these are reversed list. But remember, this reversal has happened in place. Okay. Because we are using sort function, this will do the sorting in place. So the same L1 is modified with the reversal in the descending order. Okay. Yeah. We just have another 2-3 examples in this for to cover up the other methods. So we'll see some of the methods wherein we can remove an item from the list. Okay. So I'll start with an example. So if I have this list, my list equal to the characters PROBLEM as the members. If I want to remove one particular element, I can use the remove method, remove, and then I'll give which element to be removed. So here, remember, I have given the element itself, not the index. Okay, I have given the element itself as the argument. So remove will take the element, not the index. So in the output, you can see that the character P is missing. Okay. Now, what if multiple P's are present in the string? Then it will remove only the first available. Okay, the first available list. In fact, I can give one more argument here. I can give one more argument. Like say, for example, if I give 3, then now it will look for P appearing after the index position 3. Okay, it will look for, it will remove the P which is after the index position 3. We don't have any such character P here. Okay, another very important method is pop. Now what this pop will do is it will remove the last element. If there are no arguments given, it will remove the last element. So the default argument here is always -1, which is representing the last element. Okay. So as an example, if I say mylist.pop, the last M is removed. Remember, P was already removed in the previous cell, so the first P is not there. Here M is also removed. Now, with pop, I can also give one argument. That is, for example, if I give 2, the value at index 2 will be popped out. Okay, the value at index 2 is popped out. Now remember that this function does 2 things. One is it will remove the element. Here it has removed the element, and also it will return the element which has been removed. Okay, it will return the element which has been removed. So here at location index 2 I have B 0 1 2. At index 2 I have the character B. So character B is returned, and in the my list has been modified. You can see that in the my list the character B which was here is missing, or it is not there. It has been popped out. Okay. So by default, pop will always return the last element in the list. And if you want to return any other element, you have to give the index position of that list. Now, what if you want to clear the entire list? If you want to clear every element in the list, you can use this clear. For example, mylist.clear. If I execute this, every element in my list will be removed. And now if I execute this, all elements are removed, and now obviously my list should be an empty list. Okay, you can see that it has become an empty list. Every element is removed. Okay. Yeah, this is just some methods that goes with the list and very popularly used in Python programming. Okay. Now let me just take one practice example, and this will give you a few more idea about the generating random integers. Okay, how do you generate random integer? Now I'll show this. The idea here is I want to create a list with some random numbers. Okay, I want to create a list with some random numbers, and those random numbers should vary between 1 and 10, both inclusive. Anything from 1 to 10. Randomly, it should select one number from 1 to 10, and that should get appended to the list. So first, I'll illustrate this with a for loop. I hope it is self-explanatory. And then again, we will try to repeat this with the list comprehension. Okay. So to do this purpose, I'll be importing one module called random. Now this random module is installed by default when you install Python. It is always there. So import random. Next, I will create one empty list. I'll call it as number list equal to empty. It will create one empty list. And now I want to create a list containing 20 integers which are randomly picked up from the numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. So finally, I should get one list which has 20 values, and all these values should be in the range from 1 to 10, which are randomly picked. To create a random number, in fact, if you want to test some program, and if you want to generate a large list, this will be a very handy method. Okay, and this is quite popularly used in Python programming, particularly for testing a program. So in a for, I'll put this in a for loop for n in range 20. So remember that range 20 refers to numbers from 0 to 19. So the value of n here is going from 0 to 19. So in each pass of the for loop, the value of n will be from 0 to 19. The first time it will be 0. But actually we don't need the value of n. So basically this in this program, n is keeping track of the loop count. Okay, it is just keeping track of the loop count, and we are not going to use the value of n in our program, but we just want the next statement to be executed 20 times. That's all. We want the next statement to be executed 20 times, nothing more. There's the reason why we need this construct. Okay. Now what we will do is numList.append. I will append this with one value, and this one value is a random value generated by this function. Remember, I used this random.randint. Random is the module that we have imported. This is this random. See, we have to type it as it is. Randint is a method inside this random. It's a function belonging to this random module. Okay, randint, random integer. There is a short form for that. Random integer, randint. It is a function which is defined inside this random module, and this is the argument for the function. So what this will return is random.randint 1, 10. This will return one integer which is between 1 and 10, both inclusive. Okay, it will return one random integer between 1 to 10. You can write any number here. Generally, you write integers. Of course, you have to write integer. This is the range. Okay, if you don't write the starting value, it will be considered as 0. Okay, but whatever, if you write a single number, it will be considered as 0 to that number that you write. So in this case, it is very clear 1 to 10. Okay, and recall that this statement is executed 20 times under the control of this for loop, because this for loop will traverse through 20 times. And finally, I'll just print the num list, and you can see that this is the result. Of course, every time I execute this, okay, every time I execute this, the list will be having different numbers. Okay, so you can see that I'm executing it a many number of times, but every time the list values are different. Okay. Now the same job can also be done using list comprehension. So I import rand number. Num list is going to be a list. Recall that I've written some statement here, but that statement is enclosed with the square bracket. Okay. So inside this random.randint 1, 10, this is the random number generated, and this generation has to take place 20 times as indicated here. You can see that it is a slight rearrangement of the same for loop statement that I had written in the previous cell. It is a slight rearrangement of that, but this is more specific to Python, and it occupies less number of lines, less coding, and all those things. Okay. And if I just try to see what is num list, you can see that every time I execute, what it produces will be different. Okay. Yeah. Now another important method which probably I missed out earlier is the count. So this returns the count of element in the given list. For example, I have generated the num list in the previous cell. Now here, if I want to know how many times the number 9 is appearing, or count of element 9 in the num list. So if I want that, I'll just execute this. You can see that 9 is appearing twice. It is here, and another time it is here. Okay. So this is a very handy tool for generating a list which contains random integers. I can you can just have a look at this random module. There are some. If I just use random, it produces a random number between 0 and 1. A floating point number will be generated. So essentially, I can use this module to generate some random integers or random numbers. Okay. Yeah. Now I'll just illustrate a couple of practice examples, and in these examples you will find a few other tricks also to solve a given problem. So the first problem that we are looking at is write a program to store 7 fruits in a list entered by the user. Now here what is very important is the user is entering the values corresponding to these 7 fruits. So you have to enter 7 fruits as a string. Obviously, you are entering some name like apple. It is a string. So you are entering 7 strings, and those 7 strings that you enter should be considered as the value, and those values should be put into a list. Say, let's call that list as a fruit list, fruit underscore list. So how this can be done? This can be done in 2 ways. I'll illustrate both of them. One which uses more number of lines of code, and another one which uses very less lines of code. So here, first attempt is going to be I will just create 7 variables, f1 through f7. So I will execute this input statement 7 times. So enter fruit number 1, fruit number 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So I will execute this. Obviously, when I execute this, these 7 input statements will be executed with these different fruit numbers. So every time I should input the name of the fruit, and finally all those values are appended, or rather all those values are put into a list, and finally I'll produce the fruit list. Okay. So when I execute this, it will ask for the names of the fruit that you want to include in the okay. It's executed 4 times. I'm running out of fruits. Okay, jackfruit, mango, orange, watermelon. Okay, I'll just put some ABCD here. Okay. So after executing the 7th statement, it has come out with the list of all the values that you have typed in. Okay. So recall that in Jupyter Notebook, I can clear the output. Okay. Now another easy way to do this is by writing this input statement only once, execute it 7 times by putting it inside a while loop. Okay. So a simple trick here is I will initialize the fruit list with an empty list. So initially it will be empty. So if I execute the length function on this, it will return 0 because there are no elements in this. And I want to append values to this 7 times. That means 7th time when I append value, the length of the list will become 7. So I'll put this inside a while loop while length of the fruit is less than 7. So as long as this is true, the while block will be executed. Once it becomes false, that means once our length of fruit exceeds 7, or once our this will become equal to 7, this while block will not be executed and it goes out of the block. Okay. What we write inside this is, I just take the input that is supplied by the user. Okay. And remember, we want to print this number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How can I do that? Enter fruit number. This is fixed in all the iterations of while loop, but this fellow has to change. So first time while loop is executed, it should be 1. Now remember that length of the list was 0 when the while loop was entered first time. So the number that I wanted to print was 0 plus 1. Second time when I enter this while loop, the length of the list was 1. But the number that I want to put here is 2. So it is always going to be length of the list plus 1. Okay. So what can I do is enter fruit number. Then I'll keep a placeholder here. Percentage %d is to, in this place, an integer will be displayed. And what is that integer to be displayed is length of the fruit list plus 1. That will be displayed. I think I indicated, or I have used this kind of formatting in the earlier sessions, formatting the string. So your percentage %d is the placeholder, and here after closing the string, I just write percentage, and I'll give the argument. I'll give the place value for this placeholder as length of fruit underscore list plus 1. So when I execute this, the correct number will be displayed. Okay. So finally, what I should do, the value of fruit that you have entered should be appended to the list. So recall our append procedure or other append method. So fruit list dot append the value of the fruit. So that will be appended. So once the list becomes of length 7, this while loop will be terminated and it will print the fruit list. So when I execute this, this program will behave in the same way as we executed this earlier. Okay. Yeah, it is done. Okay. So there is no change in behavior. This program behaves exactly the same as in the previous case. Okay. But only difference is I have less lines of code here, and I put everything inside a while loop. In fact, I don't need these 2 lines. Okay. I don't need these 2 lines. I can just put this entire input statement inside this. This fruit can be replaced with this input statement. Still, it will work. Okay. So I don't need these 2 lines of code here. Just for the sake of clarity, if you want the program to be more clearer, you can always write it like this. But it is also possible to replace this fruit by the right hand side part of this expression. Okay. Yeah. Now another illustration is again here. What I'm trying to use those methods that we studied in the list of methods, and using that, just trying to help you understand the usage of those methods. Okay. So in this illustration, the problem statement is something like this. I should start with the list. I should initialize one list with this value and do these operations, and finally I should get this list as the output. Okay, so let's just try to see how these are done. So I initialized a list by name L equal to 8, 9, 10. So that is the first statement. I'm starting it with the initial list is this one. Next statement, next requirement is set the second entry to 17. Remember, second entry is having the index 1. So what I should do is L1 equal to 17. Now remember, L1 was 9 actually. Okay, L1, L index 1, earlier it was 9, but now it is modified to 17. So at the end of this, the value of L will be equal to 8, 17 and 10. Okay, in fact you can put a print statement in between every statement here and see what will be the output. Okay, though it is not required as in the problem statement, but just to see what happens after each statement, you can put a print statement, print L after each of these statements. Okay, just for the sake of debugging the program. Next, what I should do, add 4, 5 and 6 to the end of the list. So I can use the append method 3 times, first to append 4, then to append 5, then to append 6. But instead here I have appended in one statement L.extend. Extend it with another list which has the values 4, 5, 6. Now those 4, 5, 6 is taken from this requirement. Okay, so at the end of this, the value of L would be initially we had 8, 17 and 10, and now 4, 5, 6 are used to extend it. So this is going to be the value of the list at the end of executing this L.extend command. Okay. Next, what we need to remove the first entry from the list. Okay, remove the first entry from the list. So either I can use remove statement or I can use pop statement. Remember, first entry is having the index 0. So L.pop will remove the element at index 0. Okay. Alternately, I can use this instruction L.remove, add in bracket L0. Now this L0 will be the value in the first position, that is 8, that will be removed. Okay. Now next is to sort the list. So I'll just execute L.sort. Okay. So it will sort the list in the ascending order because I have not given the reverse equal to true parameter here. If I give that, it will sort it in the reverse direction, that is in the descending order, but that's not our requirement. Now double the list. Double the list means duplicate the values. So that means if I had initially 8, 9, 10, again it should repeat 8, 9, 10. So here at the end of this sort, whatever is there in the list, that should be extended with one more copy of L. So I use the extend method once again, L.extend L. So double the string by duplicating. Okay. So we already have some L here, and one more copy of L is appended to it. And the next requirement is insert 25 at index 3. Now this can be done L.insert. Probably this was not discussed earlier, but this is very handy command if you want to insert an element. If I want to insert an element at some index position, first I will give the index position where I want to insert, then I will give the value. Okay. So what this will do, this will insert 25 at index position 3. That is 3 between 3 and 4. Index position 3 means, sorry, it's other way around. It is index position 2 and 3. 0, 1, 2 will be as it is. In the position 3, this new value that you have supplied will come. Okay. At position 3, this new value will come. So at index 3, the value 25 is inserted. And now you display the value of L, that is the list is displayed. You can see that the value of L has been modified to this, which is exactly the same as the one given in the problem statement. So after doing all these 6 operations on the original list containing 3 elements 8, 9, 10, I should get an output which is equal to this one with the, it has 3 plus, it has 11 elements. Okay, so we got the same one. It just illustrates all these methods that work on the list. Remember, in all these cases, the list L itself is getting modified in place, and we are not producing any new list out of this. Okay, that's very important to note. Yeah. Let's just take one more illustration, which is a random integer. This is a problem statement. Write a program that generates a list of 20 random numbers between 1 and 100. This is almost same as we did earlier. We did from 1 to 10, but now it is 1 and 100. Now, why I am taking up these examples, because we need this random integer generation very often in our IoT programs also, particularly to do some testing of the program. Okay, so let's just do these operations on the given list. So first I will generate a random list containing random numbers from 1 to 100. So I will use the second method that we used earlier using the list comprehension. So import random, this is very important. And I just use one variable name rint. And once again, I follow the general convention used for keeping the variable name or giving the variable name. Here I kept r in a small case and int with I with a capital letter. Okay, there is a Python convention of giving the variable name. So if the variable name is comprising of multiple words, here what I really mean is random integer. So I just taken r. The first word will have a small case, and subsequent words will be capitalized. That is, the first letters will be capitalized. So here r int, I kept I in capital case. Okay, and I used one list comprehension. This is a repetition of what we did earlier. This will simply produce a list of random integers, and the values will be anything from 1 to 100. Okay, so when I execute this, that list is produced. I'm just printing that list. That list will be displayed. Now I want to calculate the average. That's what is required in the statement. Print the average of the elements in the list. So how can I calculate the average? I have to add up all the elements and divide it by the length of the list. Of course, here we know that length is 20. So sum of rint. Now this is a very handy command or very handy built-in function called sum. Okay, this will add up all the elements in the given sequence. Okay, so rint is a list, and all the elements in rint will be summed up. Okay, otherwise you can write a for loop and add elements one by one, but that is not required in Python. You can just use this built-in function called sum rint divided by length of the rint, which is 20. Okay, now remember one thing, I've used a single backslash. Now we actually have two operators, single slash and double slash. Single slash will always give you a floating point value. Return will always be a floating point value. The double slash is an integer division. It will always return a integer value. So if you say 12 by 5, 12 double slash 5 will return 2 as the answer. Any remainder part will be truncated. Whereas if I write 12 by 5, this will give me 2.4. Okay. this will always return a floating point value. So I wanted actual average, so I used the single backslash. Now, what is the largest element in rint? For that also I have a function, built-in function called max rint, maximum value in rint. So likewise, minimum value in rint. Max and min are the two built-in functions available to find the maximum value and the minimum value in the given sequence. Obviously, the argument that I supply must contain only integers, or rather only numbers in the sequence. You can just experiment it whether it works on a list of strings. Okay, whether this max function will work on a list of strings, you can just experiment it. Next is I want to know the second largest and second smallest element. Now you will have some known algorithms to find second largest and second smallest element in an array. But I'm not getting into that algorithm. I'm using a simple trick here. So what I'll be doing is I'll use the built-in function called sorted. Okay, sorted rint. Now this will produce a list which will arrange the numbers in the ascending order. Okay, it will arrange the numbers, it will produce a new list, and that list will have the numbers in the ascending order. Now, once you have this sequence in the ascending order, the largest number will be the second largest number will be the second one from the end. Okay, the second largest number will be the second one from the end. So now remember that the output of this will be a list. So in that list, I want to extract the second value from the end. So I will put an index here. I will slice that value, okay, by using this -2. -2 means second one from the end. Okay, that's how I should remember this. If I give -1, it will be the last one, -2, second one from the end, -3, third one from the end, and so on. But here I wanted the second largest value. So it will be the second one from the end. Okay. Maybe this might fail if you have a different definition. Suppose if the maximum value is repeated twice, then probably how you define your second largest value based on the definition, you can modify this index. Okay, that I leave it to you to make that smallest modification. So I presume here that largest value is not repeated. Okay, largest value in the list is not repeated. So if that is repeated, probably you may have to do some modification onto this argument. Now, what will be the second smallest value? Second smallest value will be the second value in the list. So I can give +1 as the argument. Remember, if I give 0 as the argument, that will be the smallest value. The second smallest will be the one sitting at index 1. Okay. Once again, if the smallest value is repeated, based upon how you want to define as the second smallest value, you can appropriately do a modification here. Or it might require a few, one or two more lines of coding in case if those values are repeated, what to do. Okay. Anyway, I'm presuming that the smallest value and largest values are not repeated. Fine. Okay. Now, next requirement is print how many even numbers are there in the list. So I just have to make a count of even numbers. Okay. I have just made this slightly extension. I am also printing the list of even numbers. Okay. I am printing the length of, printing the even numbers list, and then putting the count. So this is actually this is not required. Okay. Slightly extension of the statement of the problem. So r int even. So here I am creating a list which contains all the even elements in the rint. Okay. So how this even elements are to be extracted? Again, I'm using list comprehension, but you can see that the list comprehension is slightly extended. You just read this as an English statement. You'll be able to get the idea that goes into this list comprehension. Element for element in rint, if not element modulus 2. Now remember, not element modulus 2. Element modulus 2 will be 0 in case if element is even number, right? Modulus returns the remainder after dividing it by 2. So element modulus 2 will be 0 if the element is a even number. Not 0. Remember, if the value is 0, it is always considered as false. If the value is other than 0, it is considered as true. Okay. So here, if the number is even, this value will be treated as false. So not false, it is true. So the if statement will be this if statement, the argument, the condition of the if statement will be true corresponding to all even elements. Okay. Condition of the if statement will be true for all even elements in the list. Okay. Now, how many times I have to test these 20 elements? I have to test it 20 times to know whether each of the 20 elements is an even number or not. Okay. Or okay, this can be done in a slightly different. Remember here, I am not using any loop count. This will be executed as many times as many elements are there in the for loop. Okay, so every time it goes through the for loop, the value of element, for example, if this is the sequence that is generated, if this is the list that is generated, first time for loop is executed, this will be the value of element. Second time for loop is executed, this is the value, and so on. So first time, for example, if this is the list generated, first value is 41. So 41, whether 41 is even or odd. If it is odd, 41 is odd, so this statement will be, this condition will be false. Not element modulus 2 will be false. So this will not be executed, in the sense the element will not be appended. The element will be appended only if this is true. Okay, only if this condition is true, the element is appended. So if the element is odd number, it will not be appended. If the element is even number, that will be appended to the list. So what at the end, what will happen is it will create a list which has all the even numbers in the given list. So let me just execute this. You can see that this is the list of 20 random numbers. Some of them are even, some of them are odd. This is the average value. This is the largest element in the list. This is the smallest element in the list. You can always verify. The second largest and second smallest elements are 91 and 3, respectively. And this output is not actually part of this problem statement, but anyway, just for the clarity, I have returned that print statement. This is the elements. This is a list containing all the even elements in the given list. Okay. Now the length of this elements which are even is 8. Now suppose if I want all the odd elements, how many odd elements are there? What I need to do is I just have to remove this not. Okay. If I just remove this not statement here, it will give me the number of odd statements in the, number of odd numbers in the list. Okay. Yeah. I hope it is simple enough. Now, what is the takeaway from here is you should know how to create a random number. Creating one random number can be accomplished by only this statement. If I want to create a large number of random numbers, I can use list comprehension to create the random numbers. And what should be the range of random numbers that you create? 1 to 100. That will go as argument to this randint. That's very important takeaway from this statement, which we'll be using quite often later. Okay. I'll skip this example. You can easily understand. The only one thing that I want to mention here is this problem statement says that write a program that asks the user for an integer and creates a list that consists of the factors of that integer. Okay. So how I give a number, say 125. I have to find all the factors of 125 except 125 itself. Okay, except 1 and 125. I have to find all the factors. Now I'm using one module here called math, which is once again a built-in library. Every time whenever you install Python, that will be installed automatically, called math. So inside this library or inside this module, we have the normal functions, finding square root, finding trigonometric functions, and so many other mathematical functions. Which now in this case I am only importing one function. Okay, from math import sqrt. Sqrt is the function to find the square root of a number. Okay, why I use this is suppose I give a number 1500. I can find all the factors of that number by searching the numbers from 1 up to square root of that number. I don't have to search beyond that. I can easily find all the roots by searching a subset of numbers from 2 to square root of that number. Okay, so for that purpose I'm using this. There's a very simple code. I think you can go through this just as a example of seeing the result. Suppose I type some large number. Okay, 96,586. It has only so many factors, 2, 7, 14, and these large numbers. Okay. Also see that I'm printing the numbers in the sorted order at the end. Okay, though it is not required, but it will help you to debug certain possibilities in the output. Just keep the numbers in ascending, keep the factors in ascending order. So the given number 96,586 has these many. There are 6 factors. Okay, so you can find a list of such factors of a given integer. Yeah. Now one more important concept. This is very handy, which is part of our random number. Choosing a random element from a sequence. Okay. How can I choose a random integer, sorry, a random element from a sequence? As a use case, suppose you have a list of passwords and I want to choose one password randomly from that. Okay, so how this can be done? As an example, I have created one list containing few strings. Well, I don't call this as passwords, though it looks something like that. Okay, if you have a list of such strings, I want to choose one amongst these strings randomly. So every time I choose, it may pick up different values. Okay, so a very simple and very handy method is this choice function, which is defined inside this random. So what I need to do, I need to import this random module, and I have my predefined list, and apply that function onto this list 1. Okay, so random dot choice list 1. List 1 is the name of the list from which you want to randomly pick one element. Okay, you want to pick one element from this randomly. That list name, variable name you give here. The name of the command is choice. Okay, so if I execute this, every time I execute this, it may give different values. Well, I don't say that it will give different values, because successively, when I execute this successfully, there is always a possibility that same value may come up again. because it is picked up randomly. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. So I execute this any number of times or multiple times. You will see that different values come up here as the output. So I can use this to create or rather to pick up one random or to select one random element from a given list. Okay. Now another way is if I want to create, if I want to pick more than one. Suppose I want to pick three values from this list. I can put this random.choice inside a for loop with the number of times, that number of values I want. So in this case, the for loop will be executed 3 times, or to say this will be executed 3 times. So 3 values will be picked up randomly from the list. Okay. So if I execute this, sorry. Now the drawback here is I am using the same choice function, which will produce or which will pick one value from the list, but I am executing it 3 times, so it gives me 3 values. Okay, at the end it will give me 3 values, but there is always a possibility that in the output there may be repetitions. Okay, in this execution there are no repetition. Okay, but you execute a few times, you will find some values getting repeated. Let's see, for example, here machine 001 that got repeated. Okay, so this could be one drawback. Now to work around that, you can always use something like there is one more function called sample. Okay, which works in the same way as list, but this ensures that the k items that you are picking up from the given list are not repeated. Okay, so if you want to pick 3 values or 3 elements from the list, you can use this sample function, which is part of this random module. So random.sample, first argument is list1, the list from which you want to pick the values. Then I'll give how many, k equal to 3. Now here one thing that you should notice is I have to write this k equal to. I cannot write it as 3. If I write it as 3, it will be an error, because k this uses a slightly different way in which the arguments are passed. K equal to 3. I have to write this k. I have to write it as k only. I cannot write it as something else. I cannot write it as f equal to 3. Okay. I cannot write it as anything else. I have to write it as k equal to 3. Okay, because it is a named parameter. Okay, it's called keyword argument parameter. So this keyword has to be typed as it is. While defining the function, the keyword is defined as k. So I have to write it as k only here, nothing else. Okay. So if I write k equal to 3, this will produce 3 values from the, or 3 elements from, it will pick 3 elements from the list. So one advantage of using this is the output will be non-repetitive. Okay, that means none of the 3 elements will be repeated. There is advantage as compared to this. You can also produce here. You can do some more line of coding to ensure that non-repetitive output is produced here. Okay, based upon what has been already produced, you can just re-execute this. Okay, there's possible to write it under program control, but here it is not required. Okay, so there's the advantage of this sample function. Yeah, that almost comes to the end of this list topic. I think I'll just complete this tuple, which is a very short topic. Then the other thing that is set, we will take it up in the next session. We know that list is actually a mutable object. That means it is possible to change the values inside a list. The tuple, which is similar to a list, the only difference its values cannot be changed. Okay. So tuple are used to store multiple items in a single variable. Now this is very similar to the list. List is also used to store multiple items in a single variable. Now, tuple is basically one of the 4 built-in types which is used for storing multiple items with a single variable name, or it is also referred as collection, a store collection of data. Okay. Okay. So other 3 are list, set, and dictionary. These we already seen what is list. List, set, and dictionary. These are also helpful for storing the data as a collection. Okay, storing the data as a collection. We have a collection of words. For example, in the early just example we have created here, we have a collection of words. Okay, so this data type is collecting. It is a collection type of data where it has collected a few words and given one name for the entire collection. So the entire collection is given one name, one variable name. Okay. So the list and tuple, set, dictionary all belong to this class. Okay, with some differences between them. Now basically tuple is a unmutable or rather immutable object, means you cannot change the content of tuple once it is defined. Of course, you can overwrite it as you do in the case of string. You can overwrite, but you cannot change any one value or any small set of values inside a tuple. That's the only difference between tuple and list. Okay. Obviously, most of the functions, most of the methods which work for list will not work with tuple because it is immutable. The slicing operation will work. Okay, because slicing operation always produces a new list. So the slicing operation will work with the tuple also, just like strings, list, and tuple. The slicing operation is identical, but you cannot change the content of a tuple just exactly the same as in the case of a string. Okay. Remember, we defined a list using square bracket. While defining a list, we use square bracket, whereas while defining a tuple, we define a round bracket. Sometimes even if you don't put the round bracket, it just put the list with just put the names of the, just put the arguments with the comma separation. That will be considered as a tuple. Okay. A tuple in Python is similar to list. The difference between the two is that it cannot change. We cannot change the elements of a tuple once it is assigned, whereas we can change the elements in case of it is list. We already seen that. Now I have just 1 or 2 small illustrations with the tuple, and there are very few methods available with respect to tuple. We'll just see them and close this session for the day. How do I create an empty tuple? So if I want to create a tuple by name T1 equal to, just like we created an empty list, create an empty tuple, print T1. So if you execute this, you can see that it is creating one empty tuple. Okay. And also if I say what is the type of T1, this is one more built-in function which is handy. What it has produced is tuple. That means T1 belongs to tuple class. Okay, T1 is of type tuple. Okay. Now let's see a definition of tuple with a little more, a few more elements. Like I defined one tuple by giving this as the variable name. Actually, by definition, this should be capital T. I mean, not by definition, by convention. Okay. So I'm defining one tuple with the name this tuple. I'm initializing it with the 3 words here. I'll just call it as 3 strings. Okay. So if I enter Now, what is the meaning of saying it is immutable is I cannot change the content of any one entry. For example, if I say that this tuple, the element at the 0th location, is apple. Now, I cannot change this. Suppose if I want to write this as mango, okay, I cannot change this. If I try to change this, it gives an error. Okay, what is the error? Type error. Tuple object does not support item assignment. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to assign this tuple 0 with a new value. Okay, that's what we mean by immutable. We cannot change once it is defined. Of course, I can rewrite it. I can write this as, okay, I can rewrite this with something like this is perfectly fine. Okay, this is perfectly fine. Here what I am doing, I am completely rewriting this. I'm reassigning it with a complete new value. This is fine, but I cannot change any part of it. Okay, I cannot change part of this tuple. I cannot reassign any value for any one of the elements in the tuple. Okay, this is very similar to the string. Tuple items are ordered, unchangeable, and allow duplicate values. What does this mean? Ordered in the sense I can use indexing mechanism to access these elements. Okay, so this tuple 0 will return me this first element. This tuple 1 will return me the first second element. This tuple 2 will return me the third element. Okay, it is ordered. Okay, ordered arrangement of this. Same thing in the case of list, and it's very same in the case of string also. That is also ordered, because I can refer to or I can access each of the elements inside that variable using indexing mechanism. Okay, tuple items are indexed. The first item has the index 0, and the second item has index 1, and so on. And the last item has the, you can also use negative indexing. Last item has index -1. Next last will have the index -2, and so on. Okay, I can use the length function to find the length of this tuple. Sorry, I think I had changed the name of the variable. Okay, it has a length of 3. I can use this. Okay, now okay, so far fine. But now, what if the tuple has only one value? What if the tuple has only one value? Let me just illustrate this. If the tuple has only one value, I must always write it like this. Say, for example, one tuple equal to orange. Now I have given the value, but there should be a comma following to this. Okay, if you don't write this comma, then it will not be considered as a tuple. It will be, this one tuple will be a string. Okay, let me just illustrate that. See, when I have this comma written, and if I after that I am just typing this type one tuple. So this will write, this will print, or this will display what is the data type of this variable one tuple. So when I execute this, you can see that data type of one tuple is tuple. Remember that I have a comma already placed here. Now suppose if I delete this comma and now execute this, it is telling me that one tuple is a string. Okay, one tuple is a string. So this is one caution that we should be always careful about when we are initializing a tuple with a single value. Okay, So here one tuple is initialized with a single element. So if there is a single element, I should always put a comma. Okay, this is very important. Otherwise, it will not be considered as a tuple. It will be considered as the data type of whatever argument, whatever element that you have put. If you put here some integer, and if there is no string, then it will consider it as an integer. Or if you write some word here, now this will be considered as string, depending upon what is the data type of the element that you have written here. So this comma is very important. Just like list, tuple can be an heterogeneous collection of data. There is no need that all the elements of tuple should be of the same type. As you can see here, I have a string, some integer, boolean value, then again another integer and another string. So it is a heterogeneous collection of data. Okay. It can also be okay. Now there are just two functions which work on this. Two methods which work on the tuple. One is count and another is index. Okay. So suppose I have a tuple which is defined like this. Just I have picked up randomly some integers. So I defined tuple 2 with these values. Now I just want to find out how many times the element 4 occurs in this list. In this tuple which has the name tuple 2. So if I execute this, you can see that it is giving me 3. But incidentally, okay, I cannot. There is no count. There is no built-in function like count. So I can apply this tuple2.count, and I have to give the value. For example, if I give 2 here, it will tell me how many times 2 is repeating in this. Or if I give 5, it will say how many times 5 is repeating in this. Okay. So the actual value, which is whose frequency is to be determined, has to be written here. Another method which goes with the tuple is index. So here I can, this is very similar to the list index or the index function applicable to a string. Okay. So here I can say index of element 2. Remember, this is the element after the index position 4. So the second argument here is the integer value. It is the index position, and the first value is the value that you are searching for. Okay. So here what happens, where the value 2 is, what is the index of value 2 after the index position 4? So index position 4 is, this is 2, 3, 4. Okay. After this, where 2 is located, you can see that 2 is somewhere here. Okay. So its index is 12. So if I write where 2 is occurring, sorry, where 5 is occurring after the index position 4, you can see that it is locating at 6. Okay, this is the index 6. Suppose I say that it is after 6 where it is located. Okay, 6 is included then. After 6, after 5 where it is located. Oh, sorry, I should give a larger number. So after 7 where it is located here. Its index is 9. Okay. So whatever number that you write, it is on that location or after. Okay. 7th or after, where 5 is occurring in or after 7th index position. That's what it means. Okay. Okay. If there are any queries, you can put it in the WhatsApp group. I think I'll close it for today. In the next class, we will talk about one more collection type of data sets, which will take about half an hour time, and then proceed on to dictionary. Okay. I already sent this Jupyter notebook file to Kirti sir. Probably you would have posted it in the group, or you'll post it soon. The dictionary and the following topics, I'll make a separate Jupyter Notebook file. The sets is already included here. Okay, I'll be covering this in the next session for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and then we will proceed to the next topic, that is the dictionary. Now this